premise to be that the problem, as he said, is not funding of education, but how our educational system is currently structured. And I think to a person, every single person in here would agree with at least some aspect of that. I think we could establish, even early in this debate, unanimous consensus for the proposition that we all have recommendations to make to the public schooling system, things that need to be done differently. I think if we did a poll, every hand would go up. But I also want to see if we can reach some common ground on a proposition. So here's my question to you, Dr. Mumpower. Even assuming that everything you said is true, even assuming that we have a deep flaw at the core of public education and our curriculum, let's talk about early childhood education. Because there, I think the problem is not so much how we're educating children at a young age, but the fact that we simply are not. Only about 30% of our children have access to high-quality early childhood education. The problem there, at least in major part, would appear to be simply the provision of funds to make sure that all children at least have access to this system. At which point, we could have a subsequent conversation about the manner of their education. But as to that, 0 to 8 years old is the literacy bridge. If you don't make it across the literacy bridge, if you're not on grade level reading by 3rd grade, the odds are you never will be. And 60% of our kids don't get across the literacy bridge. If you don't get across, you've got a 2% chance of graduating from a 4-year college. You have an 8% chance of graduating from community college. Of our juvenile delinquents, 85% of them are functionally illiterate. So early childhood does amazing things for social development and cognitive development. 90% of the brain is formed by age 5. So it's important for those reasons alone. But literacy, folks, you don't learn to read when you're 8. You don't learn when you're 7. You start when you're 3. Katie is over here. I spoke to her beforehand. She taught 3rd grade right here in Asheville. And she told me there are people who show up to 3rd grade on a kindergarten reading level. And it is almost impossible, despite her best efforts and the efforts of every 3rd grade teacher in the state, to get them to proficiency by the end of 3rd grade. And the reason that's such a critical benchmark is because 4th grade is when you're supposed to go from learning to read to reading to learn. And if you don't make that transition, you watch year after year as the rest of your students, the rest of your peers pull further and further away. We have thousands of kids showing up on the first day of kindergarten, never having held a book, not knowing their names, not knowing a single letter in the alphabet. And I don't think the difference between didactic and dialectic is sufficient to explain that. I think that's about. So don't you agree?
I agree with a lot of what you're saying. There's no